Have you ever had a piece of media that just stuck with you? A piece of media that just changes you? Opens your mind? A piece of media that reflects reality? Mother 3 is that piece of media for me. It's insane how much emotions and tension this game can portray. There's a lot when it comes to Mother 3, but I'll only be discussing 3 topics. Taintain Island, The Masked Man, and the Magypsies. I really want to emphasize this point, but this video will be very heavy on spoilers. So please keep that in mind when watching this video. I'm also doing something different with the visual, so I hope you enjoy that. Without further ado, let's get started. Taintain Island. In this part of the game, the main characters washed up on an island with nothing to eat but mushrooms. From there, the game turns into a literal mushroom trip. This part of the game is definitely terrifying for many reasons, such as the disjointed music, the weird enemies, but most importantly, the dialogue. Throughout the island, the main party encounters illusions of most of their friends and family, but since they're illusions, they tell nothing but lies and even start to threaten the characters. This part of the game serves as a really good way to portray the main character's fears, especially considering the little amount of dialogue these characters can have. Lucas fearing that he's responsible for his family separating, thinking that he deserves to be beaten, Kubantara believing she's a worthless princess, and Duster believing he'll be nothing more than a fool. The only one that doesn't have fear, at least in this moment, is Boney, the dog. The fact that Boney doesn't take any mushrooms and is the only one that can see through these illusions really says a lot. Among many cultures and beliefs, dogs or animals in general can be seen as guardians of sorts. And this very much applies to Mother 3, with Boney barking, growling, and even whimpering at these illusions, while the main characters essentially do nothing until these illusions show themselves. With the characters doing nothing, I believe this is done on purpose. Sure, you can argue that this is just basic game design, but sometimes when someone is faced with fear, sometimes all they can do is nothing. Sometimes they start to see these illusions as reality and just accept it, even if they don't want to. Surroundings can even make this feeling worse, such as listening to depressing music or being in an uncomfortable place. Eventually, the main party finally gets through the island and comes to their senses, but the nightmare isn't over, leading us into the Masked Man. The Masked Man for me is such a terrifying concept. Just this poor child forced to do things out of his control, forced to dress a certain way, and all of this because of the Pig Mask Army. The Masked Man is nothing but a puppet or tool. Even Porky admits to this, questioning if it even has a name. And to think that the Masked Man needs to be Lucas's brother, Klaus. The young, adventurous Klaus. To some extent, the Masked Man can be seen as the quote-unquote perfect human, doing stuff without questioning it, wearing a certain uniform, and only that uniform, and getting rid of or altering things that doesn't meet Porky's standards. Speaking from personal experience, the Masked Man does scare me. Sometimes I fear that I'll just become a mindless machine listening to others' demands, only being able to dress a certain way, and unable to break free and stand out. I hope I don't end up like the Masked Man, and hope nobody else does as well. By the end of the game, Klaus finally breaks free from the Masked Man, and then he just gives up. I personally believe he gave up on purpose, as if saying that he can no longer handle the weight, and that he wants to leave without the mask. Who truly is Klaus? The Masked Man is finally defeated, but at what cost? And who did he hurt along the way? What group of people didn't fit into Master Porky's vision? The Magypsies. Whether or not the Magypsies is good representation is another topic that could be debated. I personally don't like how they're portrayed visually, with them being the most stereotypical portrayal of an androgynous group. but what they stand for works perfectly for the story of Mother 3. So little's known about the Magypsies, aside from that they're PSI users that have been around for multiple years and act as guardians for the 7 needles. Needles that can very much bring the end of the world. They also don't seem too fond of human beings, seeing that they distance themselves from the general public. Once the Magypsies do actually become known, the way the people interact with them can be very much reflected of how cis people view transgender or non-gender conforming individuals, questioning what they are, approving of them, and even deeming them as untrustworthy or straight up denying their existence. Even the villains of the game are slowly getting rid of them by pulling the 7 needles they are bound to. But it's not just the villains pulling the needles, but the heroes as well. But before discussing this more, it's best to cover the ending first. The needles can either be the beginning of something new or the end of what we know, depending on the person who pulls the needles. In the end, Lucas is the one to pull the last needle, causing the world to be destroyed and leaving the player with nothing but a blank screen. It's until the player moves around they find that everybody survived. Despite them not being visible, everyone is alive, celebrating, crying, and they even tell the player their thanks and wishes them the best in the quote-unquote other world. There's many interpretations of this ending. The one I like most, and the only one I'll highlight in this video, is that Mother 3 leads into the real world, bringing things back to the needles. If Klaus were to pull the last needle, life and everything he would know would no longer exist. These two endings can very much come back to the Magypsies and civilization. Lucas is pulling the needles to make sure that all his friends and family will be safe and be able to live in a peaceful paradise, while Porky and Klaus are pulling the needles to make sure nothing survives, not even the world. In some sense, I'm getting a theme of what are things that make up a world. Lucas is pulling the needles to save everyone he loves, and the Magypsies are willing to take that sacrifice in hopes that Lucas will create a better world, while Porky is creating his own world without the Magypsies. But all of this would be for nothing, considering Porky's grand plan to destroy mankind. I believe Mother 3 is trying to tell us that a world without the Magypsies is just nothing, or that a world taken over by the selfish with nothing that stands out is a world that shouldn't exist. Mother 3 is truly a powerful game and remains one of my, if not my favorite game of all time. Shigato Itoi and the Mother team have truly made a special experience that has changed lots of lives, including mine. Thank you. And thank you for watching.